Since I was a kid, I knew exactly what I wanted to do because I saw people like myself now in a uniform and interacting with the community. And I said, yeah, I want to be like that guy right there. This administration, you know exactly what's happening. You know it's for the right reasons, and you know that they're keeping you at the baseline of it all. But what I really enjoy about this particular police department is the fact that they understand a work-life balance. They say, family first, make sure that you're okay, and then be able to effectively do the job. Obviously, we're here to protect, we're here to serve, but we are also here to be a different light, a different perspective than they see on TV. The diversity has really grown. This town has grown. We've immersed ourselves in different cultures instead of just being, one way or majority one way. Now we're involved heavily, and it's almost like a melting pot of different cultures here, which I love to see. I love to see the growth.
Call to order the April 14th, 2022 Avon Town Council meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Julie, would you mind taking roll call, please?
Steve Eisenbarth,
Present.
Robert Hope,
Present.
Aaron Teveball, Don Loudon, Greg Zuzan,
Present.
We're going to do approval of minutes first. Do we have a discussion or a motion?
I'm fine with them. Any others? I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
Those are the March 24th, 22.
March 24th, 2022 regular meeting minutes.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Julie, roll call, please.
Craig Zuzan,
4.
Don Loudon, 4. Robert Pope,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Next item is the consent agenda to include the 414-22 check register and the agreement with General Motors.
My only question on that is, Mitchell, have you reviewed that agreement with General Motors?
We have, and we've signed off on it. We have no issues.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the 4/14/2022 check register and the agreement with General Motors to be approved as submitted.
I'll second.
Got a first and a second. Julie, roll call, please.
Don Loudon, 4. Robert Pope,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Greg Zuzan,
4.
Next item on the agenda is the first of 2 public comment opportunities. You may comment on items on the agenda that are not a public hearing or on a specific matter within the council's jurisdiction. This is not a Q&A session, but an opportunity to share your comments with the council. Please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and limit your time to 3 minutes. Thank you. Seeing no one come forward, we'll close that section of public comment, move on to department updates. Mike, going first.
Sure. Good evening, council. Mike Tully, Town of Avon, Planning and Building Commissioner, Director, whatever. Just want to give you an update on a couple of items. Since the first of the year, we've been fairly aggressive on doing uploads of permits, signs, commercial, residential, pretty much any and all of them. And we're literally have uploaded thousands of them already. So we're making good progress on getting those things. So we're clearing up storage space. Wanted to give you a heads up that I'm working with the fire marshal, Levi Carpenter, with the Washington Township Avon Fire Department. And based on what happened with the Walmart warehouse building, that we realized that for the town residents, we need a little more teeth in the town code. Specifically Chapter 7, which is the building and construction regulations and the fire prevention ordinance, because we want to make sure that we basically learn from what happened to them. We don't want it to happen again. So at some point, we're collecting information from different municipalities right now, and we're going to study those and try to incorporate it into amending the town code. So when our big warehouse projects become occupied, that we don't have this issue in town. And the last thing I have is you have a copy of my monthly report for March, and just wondered if you had any questions on that. Or anything else for that matter.
Looks like you're busy.
We try to stay that way.
Thanks, Mike.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Peoples, I'm the planning director. As far as the Board of Zoning Appeals, had only one case. It was a Lovett, a small retail center up on County Road or on I believe Dan Jones, and that was approved. It was a special exception because of the way it was zoned. BZA this week only has two. One is above Bubba's 33 parking. They want to have 4 rows of parking between the front of their store and 36, and so that's going. And also Ziggy's Coffee, which is at 100 South and Dan Jones Road. It's a small drive-through coffee shop. They have a variance for signage. The development plan review petition is going to the Plan Commission this month. But they have a requirement for illuminated sign, no illuminated signage within 600 feet of a residential area. And obviously that site is adjacent to residential on all 4 sides. There were 4 items on the Plan Commission agenda, including the Unified Development Ordinance, and the Plan Commission did approve all of the changes that the council sent to it at its meeting. So the Unified Development Ordinance is actually in effect. We went through we have to put it in 2 different places. We have to send notice out. We've done all those things. And so the UDO is effective. Now we do have one administrative step we have to take because there are some alternate building codes in there. I've got to send those sections to the state for approval. But we are administering that ordinance, and anything that's coming into the March meeting, well, I should say the March meeting, Plan Commission meeting, has 1 item that was filed on March 30th and 1 item that was filed on April 1st. And so that March 30th meeting is that development plan review is the last item that's going to be reviewed under the old zoning ordinance. But from here on out, all development plan reviews and other sorts of things are going to be reviewed in the new zoning ordinance. April's Plan Commission meeting is rather lengthy. So it's got about 12 items on that agenda. We've done the staff reports. A lot of them are development plan reviews and plats, and they shouldn't be too problematic. We might be able to punch through 11 items before 11 o'clock, but there are about 3 or 4 items on that agenda which are going to have some controversy associated with them. And so that's going to be a long meeting. The good thing is in May, we only have 3 items on the agenda. And one of them is a amendment to the floodplain regulations on the new UDO. So literally 3 days before the Plan Commission heard your changes, the state contacted me and gave me the new model ordinance. And I honestly, I'll tell you, I asked for it before, but they gave me the new model ordinance for the floodplain regulations. So yes, fairly soon you're going to see an amendment to the UDO, but it's brand new floodplain regulations the state requires us to adopt because of our participation in the National Flood Insurance Program. So having said that, that's it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
I really appreciate your help on the UDO. That was great at the Plan Commission. It was just fun to see that go through, and everyone was all for it. And we just had some comments, but thanks, Bill.
Yep, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Bill.
Good evening, John Taylor, Economic Development Director. Avon Landing bonds, we're still waiting. We've had 3 different days set up for closing on the property and 3 different delays. So Ryan was going to reach out by email to the developer today, find out where we are on that. And I reached out to the developer of the Avon Landing Apartments to find out where we are on that. Still waiting to hear on both. Today I had lunch with a member of a construction company, BW Construction. They'd like to do some work here in the town. It's a company I've worked with in the past, and I know this person pretty well. DRG is looking to add that additional 250,000 square foot building in the back of the property. The other thing that's happening is they've come to look to add office space to both the buildings they're building. That usually indicates to me that they have a potential tenant where they wouldn't know what size offices someone would need. So I don't know who that is yet, but hopefully we'll find that out soon. This past Monday, Ryan, myself, Robert, and Greg met with the Chicago Industrial Group at their buildings on 100 South and the property up on Reagan. Before we left for the meetings, I'd said to my colleagues that if they are happy when we walk away, happier than when we showed up, and we are happier than when we visit with them, then it would be a successful meeting. I think I'll let all of you make your comments, but I thought the meetings went very well. They're looking to move forward on their 1,009,000 square foot building this year. They've got another 500,000 they'd like to build. As we talked to them about the property up on Reagan, we will not see anything over 400,000 square feet up there. Probably see a number of buildings that are 75 to 150 to 200,000 square feet, which will be manufacturing type buildings. The value of the manufacturing building is additional tax revenue from the kind of equipment that a manufacturing building has versus a distribution center. Hopefully those will also be the kind of jobs that pay a much higher wage. The kind of jobs that people that live in town now that have to travel 30, 40, 50, 60 minutes to work today would take a look at those kind of jobs if it was a significant pay increase. So I think things are going really well there too. And I will just ask each of you if you'd like to make comments on the Chicago Industrial meetings.
I was planning on to on my council report. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, John. I didn't forget about you, Jared.
I know. Came up early this time, so make sure. Good evening, Jared Wade. I'm the Communications Director for the town of Avon. First, our new website is live. It's going strong. There were 0 hiccups outside of the small issues. So I'm going to say 100% success rate on the launch of the new website. Notification system is going fantastic. Sign up is great. It is filling up much faster than I anticipated. So there is something new that we're working on to work in tandem with the website to notify residents and even faster capabilities, working with the police department, other emergency services. That's a little bit of a stinger. So I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. It's a taste. So stay tuned. We're going to have more information about what that is very, very soon. This last couple of weeks, I was able to work with the police department on 5 different videos. I think those turned out really, really well. And I want to give a special thank you to Tajay, Parker, Stephanie, Alex, and Kevin. Those are the 5 different officers that I was able to hang out with for a few hours and just get a better glimpse of who they are as individuals, as some of them as residents of Avon, but all of them very good people. And it was really neat to kind of get a deeper insight into who they are, not just as an officer, but as people. So it was really, really great. So thank you to the police department for allowing me to do that. Greatly appreciate it. The Greater Avon Citizens Academy is coming up. We've been talking about that for the last few weeks. This is a partnership between us and Washington Township. I've been working hand in hand with Karen Utley from the Washington Township. That is you're going to see a stronger push for the Greater Avon Citizens Academy happening in May. And then the registration process is going to open up in mid-June. So you're going to see significantly more push and notification. Our first class is going to be a cap of 15 residents that are in Avon. This is going to be an 8-month course. It's once a month for a couple hours, and they're going to find out more about what the town does from behind the scenes. They're going to find out more about what the township does, what the library does, what the school does, emergency services, and everything in between. It's just going to be a really fantastic opportunity if you're a resident of Avon to find out where your tax dollars are going, how they're being spent, and then all the people that are behind the scenes working to make sure that you stay safe and that we keep the community moving forward. That's really all that I have, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks for getting the website up.
Yep.
Yeah, excellent.
Thanks, Jared. Steve.
Steve Moore, Public Works Director. Today was a pretty good day for Keaton. He passed 2 of his NDOT certification tests. You're only allowed to take 2 at a time, so he took the first 2, and he's doing good with that. He has 4 more to take, and then he'll have the full gamut done. He's also taking part in an 6-week short course on municipal engineering fundamentals. So that'll be going on for the next number of weeks. He's gone through and he's collected pothole locations in GIS. I know we've got quite a few of them that have been coming up and then reappearing. We had a contractor go out and do a bunch of them, everything that he could find. And then, of course, we had some more that reappeared or appeared new. So Keaton's got them in GIS now. So we can monitor them and see, if we have to go back and look at them again, try to figure out why they're recurring and what we have to do to make them so they don't recur in those particular locations. It also makes it easy because now we also can auto-generate a map of the locations for our contractor, along with a written report of addresses to where to go to repair them. So he's kind of modernizing our pothole repair process. See, we are doing drainage improvements. Keaton and I, when it was raining, we went out and we looked for issues, and then we hand dug some relief to get the water off the roads. Now we recorded those as well in GIS, and so that we know where those are for our annual drainage projects. So we'll be fixing those on a more permanent basis here soon. We did get our labels for the streetlights, so now we can record those. Again, Keaton and Daniel already have a layer set up for that where they're already in there. Now we just have to put the labels on the lights, and so then the citizenry, if they see a light out, they can say, hey, that's A127, and we know exactly where that is. So that's coming up, getting those on. And we have been fixing streetlights. So as we go along, as we're fixing them, if they're on the roundabouts, we're actually changing them to LED if they're not already. Which should pay for itself in the next 5 years. So that's a pretty good return on investment. Let's see, we have a new MS4 engineer tech that will start here on the 25th. So Drew Wilson, he is coming to us from the town of Plainfield. He was 6 years there, and he's going to come here, and he is an Avon resident. So we look forward to him fully staffing us. Betsy's doing a great job as our admin assistant. She's organizing our department. She's actually working on workflow and making us more paperless. So she's doing a lot of good improvements. She's working with Jared on a number of items, and thank you for all your help, Jared. You're doing a great job for us. Appreciate that. Mike's actually helping out as well, and look, he's got my back. So he got my back. So he's doing great, helping us out on some things. So I like the way that we work together. I mean, different sides of the building still working together. So it's pretty cool. 100 South, not a lot of work has been going on out there. It's been kind of wet and whatever. We've had some sewer work going on out there, and that's getting done slowly but surely. Erosion control, they were out there the other day fixing up silt fence and putting up some more measures. But so actual production work, not so much. I anticipate that starting probably hot and heavy any day now. Raceway and 100 North, we're getting now a proposal to go to full design. We have the concept as at 10% plans. We have the final schematic, and I'll send that to you electronically so you can look at it. Make sure you like it before we actually go forward with it. But I'm liking it. Very little impact. We're not taking any of the parking spaces of the two businesses on the north and the southeast sides, so that's good. We are hitting into the utilities that are not in an easement, so that's good for us. Let's see, Dan Jones widening phases 1 and 2. We're still doing land ac. We just submitted the RFP for inspection, construction inspection for those projects, and that'll be advertised next week, I think. So we have that going on. County Road 900 East Angelina Way roundabout. We're awaiting survey to begin on that one. Talked to the NDOT guys in the hall and in the lobby just after this last or before this meeting, and they like the idea. They along with our engineer that did the analysis, saying that it was recommended. They're saying they anticipate that would be a really good improvement for the traffic flow from Costco and Angelina Way, and it should not, and they don't see any way that it would have a negative impact on 36. So they're liking that. And then we also have some other discussions we can go on regarding the previous subject. And let's see. Oh, we've got I don't have the date written down here. We have a cleanup going. Community cleanup is April 30th. Yeah, see, I like that. So April 30th, we have a community cleanup going on, and Keaton will be running that. Roadside mowing is going on. We are doing trash pickup on our own. We are mostly medians, not roadside as much. That's what we're hoping that we're going to accomplish with this community cleanup. Street sweeping, after that occurs, and we'll schedule street sweeping for a comprehensive sweep for the town to occur. And that's pretty much it. Any questions for me?
Just one. So Keaton, is he taking the CPTs? Is that what he's doing?
Yeah.
If you want to get with me, I've got study binders on those things. I'm working with the guys on the North Split, so.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it could really help.
Yeah. He's 2 out of the 6 he's done. So yeah.
Yeah, just HMA is the hard one, but
Yeah.
tell me which one he needs and I'll help.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Sure.
Any others?
Any update on the truck traffic going through the settlement?
So the barricades have been effective, but the residents are starting to get tired of the barricades. So we're looking at other ways to detour traffic. Again, thank you for meeting with the Amazon people and getting me some contact information. We did correspond. I have not met with them in person yet. But we do have signs made, and we'll be installing some signs. And then we already have signs at the entrances to the settlement, but we're also considering a little bump out, a couple of things that'll just make it not impervious to truck traffic, but to detour truck traffic from wanting to go that direction. But that's where we're at right now. We're still trying to figure out exactly what we're going to do. I had some conversation with their HOA president, and yeah, we're trying to figure out what we're going to do on a permanent basis.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Good, thanks.
It's me again. There's two things that I wanted to remind everybody about. One, not this Saturday, but next Saturday is Heavy Trash Day for the town of Avon. And that is also something that Keaton is helping to spearhead and organize and things of that nature. So if you're watching on the live stream, you can visit avongov.org and go to the calendar, and it'll have all the details about that. And then secondly, I want to give a very big thank you to the entire staff. Over the last 6 to 8 months, there's been a larger and more aggressive push to digitize our documents, the mappings. There was a giant printer scanner that was just procured that we're going to be able to scan. This is a great way for us to be even more transparent with the community. We want to try to make accessibility for anybody that has a phone. We want to make that possible. So I want to applaud everybody that is a part of the staff. It's a weird turn. It's a hard turn sometimes if you're used to paper, but just want to give them some credit where credit's due. So that's it.
Thanks, Jared. Chief Stoops.
You sure you don't have anything else? Sean Stoops, Chief of Police. Today, we met with our IT personnel to discuss some plans to upgrade our building security camera monitoring system. If you recall, we recently did a building addition, which did not include the upgrades for the camera system. So we have some cameras that we need to move to new locations since the addition. We also need to replace some of the current analog cameras and microphones with the new high definition cameras, as well as higher grade microphones as well in the interview rooms, as well as the holding area. We're also going to be asking to be replaced some non-operational cameras that have since quit and become obsolete, and we can't really replace those to match our current system. At Monday's Merit Board meeting, we held ceremonies for our recently promoted officers. Officers Tom Owens and Steve Barton were both promoted to the rank of lieutenant. Officers Aaron Stovall, Eric Hollingsworth, and Steve Kasperzik were promoted to the rank of sergeant. And Officer Kason Elkin was assigned to investigations as our new narcotics investigator, replacing our retired officer Tony Fight. This will also help us remain in compliance with our equitable sharing agreement with the federal government, which allows us to receive some of those proceeds that might be seized during drug forfeitures and seizures and so forth. Our Indiana Crime Guns Task Force just submitted their quarterly report. And as you recall, Detective High is our task force officer assigned to that unit. Since in the beginning of this quarter, they've seized a total of 58 firearms, logged about 87 state arrests, 10 federal arrests, about 600 and some weapons have been entered into the NIBIN system, which is the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network that allows them to kind of communicate across the nation and throughout the world to fingerprint that gun by ballistics. And to piggyback on that, because they do that, they've been able to clear and tie about 7 different cases here recently to Indianapolis, as well as some of the surrounding counties of Indianapolis as well. So they're doing a great job. Unfortunately, they're very busy, but they're doing a great job in collecting those weapons and preventing future crimes, hopefully. Avon PD, we recently joined the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. This is another federal task force that we assigned Detective Jake Bogus to. In addition to his normal duties, he'll also be a part of this organization. This is a collaboration with federal, state, and local agencies to effectively respond to technological facilitated child sexual exploitation and internet crimes against children. This was developed back in 1998 to help combat those types of crimes. And now the network has 61 different task forces across the nation with more than 4,500 federal, state, and local agencies participating in this collaborative effort to try to combat those issues. Our hiring process is still open for preliminary applications. We encourage anyone that has an interest in a career in law enforcement to visit our website page at avongov.org, go to the police tab and look at career opportunities, and you can get more information about that. It will close here pretty soon, and our testing will begin on May 7th at the Indiana Law Enforcement Academy. And I would invite the council and anyone else, any other of our members of our staff that would like to come see that testing. I know some of you have taken advantage of that in the past, and it's a pretty impressive thing to see all of those people come out just to try to begin the process to get a job with the Avon Police Department. So that's all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Chief Stoops?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's it for department updates. Move on to council comment. We'll start with you, Ms. Loudon.
Well, I'm just returning from 2 weeks vacation, but I did make time to go to the Smoky Bones ribbon cutting. That's it.
All right, move on to you, Mr. Susan.
Oh, a couple of things. Attended the Smoky Bones open house, welcoming them back to Avon. They did a great job. They have a nice concept, a different concept. So we're excited to have them back. Attended the chamber board meeting, as well as the Hendricks County legislative update with some of our state representatives there. As Mr. Taylor alluded to, I was fortunate enough, and I thank you for going out to Salt Lake City and meeting with the Chicago Industrial Group, which is also known as Farmland Reserve, which is also known as the Mormon Church, but they are a big landowner within our community. And we wanted to let them know that we appreciate what they've done for us. As you all know, our tax base is 86% residential, and we need to get that balanced. And through their efforts, they're assisting in that. But they also own a number of acres up on 200 North along the Ronald Reagan. And as John indicated, some of the development that's going to be forthcoming from there. So it was very, I use the word fascinating, just interesting the way they do business, and the whole program that they have is not only ecclesiastical, but humanitarian throughout the country and out the world. So it was a very interesting time. And then we hurried back on Tuesday to attend the annexation, the freeholder meeting, which was also very interesting. But I also want to thank Bill and the Plan Commission for approving the UDO. We've worked very, very hard on that for probably a longer period of time than we wanted, but you've brought it across the finish line, so thank you for that. Also, while we were out in Salt Lake City, we were on the Zoom presentation of the police promotions, and as I said then, I'll say here, I applaud the Chief Stoops, Deputy Chief Nugent, Deputy Chief Margison, and just our overall police department. They're top-notch, they're second to none, and continue to do what you do. And then I also spoke to a Avon graduate, a Ball State graduate. She's a muralist, and she's interested in putting some murals out here in the community. So she is going to follow up with some information, some of her work that she has provided us, and we'll share it with the rest of the council and see if we have a place for it. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Eisenbarth.
I've got to lead with the Smoky Bones because that was fun. Those fun ones are always the best ones. So that was great to have them back in the community. And yes, it's a great concept. The other things, BZA attended that, and as well as the Plan Commission. And I know Bill covered just about everything there, so I don't reiterate. But the one thing that's continued was the Rise Avon. So that'll be heard here on April 25th. So April 25th, 6:30 is when we'll have the one that he mentioned. It has 12 reports that we'll have to go through. But it'll be good. And they're doing a great job as far as the Plan Commission. I really am very proud of both them and the BZA, so I appreciate that. And I'm appreciative of the NDOT presentation we had before the meeting too. That I thought they did very well. They got a little bit in the weeds there with us, but I like the weeds. That was good. A lot of detail, which is great. Other than that, I met with someone from the Attorney General's office, and we were talking about different things, and body cam, about the best practices. And there's no standard practices for body cams right now. So, Sean, I'll be searching on that. Their office said they will look into it and trying to see how often, how long do we hold on to the information? What do we do with it? That type of thing. So more will be coming on that. I think that's it for me.
State legislative breakfast as well. Just an interesting conversation, hearing some of the representatives' intents on some of their bills. Chamber board meeting, there was one interesting highlight. The chamber has a new website design as well. Same URL, but new design. Collaboration group meeting, we met earlier today, and I want to share this. It might be a little premature, but damn if it's not good news. Update from the county. It appears that they've given the initial thumbs up to begin construction this year for the bridge. The Dan Jones Bridge. So it'll work in line with our Dan Jones widening project. Tyler Warman from the governor's office met with Ryan and me. We shared some concerns for the community. He did seem very interested in the current boundaries of the town and the challenges that it presents. And then last but not least, that Utah trip. I think it was more of a success than I think I initially anticipated, which is just really excellent to say. Everything Greg said, everything John said, really awesome humanitarian effort. It appears to me they are a developer that a community wants to work with. So they are not solely interested in the bottom line. They want to make sure that they're doing good. So it was very excellent. That's it for council comment. Move on to the next item, new business, award police department computer upgrade quote. This one, leave it to you, Sean.
Thank you. You should have in your packet a proposal for a computer upgrade replacement. If you recall, if you were here back in 2014, we quickly discovered that our technology infrastructure was significantly outdated and in grave need of improvement. So we began that process of purchasing computers, and unfortunately it required us to purchase a tremendous number of computers all at once. So in an effort to try to prevent from having to make that type of an expenditure all at once, again, we tried to come up with some kind of a rotation for the computers. So we worked with our IT department as well as Ryan to come up with a capital funding plan where we could use edit funds to ensure that all of our staff was equipped with operational equipment as far as computers, in-car computers, desktop computers, all of those things go. Over the last 7 years, a lot of those upgrades are starting to reach their end of life as described by our IT personnel. And those machines are starting to hit the point where they're unable to maintain computer updates, software support, and things of that nature. We currently have 17 computers that really need to be replaced immediately. And we have a total of approximately 60 within the police department. That includes desktops, laptops, servers, evidentiary machines and devices, and so forth. In March of 2022, we had already purchased our body cams, to what Mr. Eisenbarth was speaking of. And on the back end, we've applied for a grant to help kind of offset some of that cost. We did receive a grant for $30,000 as part of that grant proposal. We had already budgeted for the cameras, and we did receive an award letter that told us that we were going to receive the $30,400. We have not received those funds yet, but we did receive the documentation indicating that we will be receiving that money. What we would like to do is to help offset the general fund, and basically trade some of that money that we already spent for the body cams and use this money to purchase those 17 computers this year to get us ahead of that rotation, so that we're not having to spend more money in 2023 to try to buy even more additional computers, and kind of keep us on that rotation. Because the grant revenue is deposited in the general fund, it should be an approved expenditure for operational supplies and capital expenses such as computers. So at this time, we would greatly appreciate it if the council could consider and approve in the amount of $26,256.58 for these 17 new machines to bolster the technology needs of our agency and to ensure the computer network systems do not falter or become obsolete. I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Do we have a specific quote from someone for this, or how are we coming up with this number?
We do. You should have a spreadsheet that breaks this down. Then this comes from our IT contractors that we currently use. There are 7 mobile terminals. There are 5 office licenses. And then there's some desktops as well as for the squad rooms, as well as administrative offices, and a forensic machine that needs to be upgraded as well. And you can see that those are broken down in the right column there for a type of machine that needs to be replaced.
I just didn't know if we had a quote from a supplier.
We generally use Pro Indy because they usually get they've historically received the best prices for those machines. And then they also have the ability to know exactly what each of those machines have to have on them as far as the specs go, to be in compliance with CGIS and all the federal guidelines that we have to be in compliance with as well. So they're already well versed on it. They won't, if we order them from somewhere else, they don't know exactly what they're receiving with that machine. Then they have to go in and maybe replace the hard drive and upgrade other parts of that machine. And it ends up costing us more in the long run.
I got one for you, Sean. I apologize. I had a technical issue. Adobe was acting up on you. Might have said something. What's the planned rotation period for these computers going forward?
The last batch that we purchased, they ran a service life of about 7 years. And as you know specifically, you could buy the 2 exact same spec machines, and one could last for 7 years, one could last for 2. It just depends on the hardware and the manufacturing, but generally about an average of 7 years of service life. When we made this purchase back in 2014 and started to kind of follow through with the rotation, we were seeing that same average, about 5 to 7 years. And it's different for the MDT terminals in the cars because they have to be upgraded to a solid state hard drive because they're bouncing around in the car. They're subjected to extreme heat and cold temperatures and things of that nature. With 60 machines, our plan was to begin at least like a 20-year or a 20 machine rotation over the course of the next 3 years. But if we can use these funds, this will get us ahead of the schedule this year. And then we can use the remaining 43 machines. We can upgrade those in the next coming years, maybe spread that out a little further so it doesn't cost us as much of a big chunk of money at once.
Thanks, Sean.
That was one of the questions I had, so thank you for that. The other question is more of a timing question. I know I've seen the documentation that we were awarded the grant for the body cameras, but from a timing, they really didn't indicate how quickly they were going to reimburse us. What happens if you order these, they come in, we got to pay for them before we get this reimbursement? Where do we get the funds for on an interim basis?
On an interim basis, we currently have a substantial amount in our law enforcement supply. And maybe Ms. Loker could give us a closer figure on that. Do you have it's on a different computer. I know that we budgeted a substantial amount, and with us only being in the 4th month of the year, the first quarter, we didn't even really begin spending from that account line until February. and we haven't made a tremendous amount of significant purchases out of that account line yet. So interimly, we should be able to cover that without any problems from the general fund through the law enforcement supply. We also have an individual that retired recently that we had budgeted for the entire year for that salary, and that position has not been filled yet, and we don't anticipate that position being filled until probably the end of summer, as well as the 2 vacancies that we budgeted for that we have not been able to fill yet either. So we have quite a bit of general fund revenue still left available.
I think it's good that you're attacking the 17 computers and going at them. The 7 years just seems like a long time to have that rotation period. Is that a little optimistic, or is that, about right?
That's just kind of based off of historical data. Like I said, you could have some that last 7, you could have maybe one that lasts 10. I think Brian's desktop, I think he said 11 or 12 years old. Before finally there was some upgrade that just wouldn't allow it to.
Were you on Windows 98?
It was not 98, but
Brian has to use it every now and then.
I'm pretty sure it was Windows 10 still. Yeah.
No other questions.
I make a motion, we approve computer upgrade and replacement proposal in the amount of $26,256.58 as presented.
Second.
Dawn
We have a
second.
first and a second. Ryan, I'm going to ask you to take roll call. Microphone.
Thank you. Robert Pope,
4.
Greg Susan,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Don Loudon.
4.
Thanks,
Can you
Ryan.
can you
Thanks,
help me
Sean.
out? Who made the motion in the second?
Dawn did the
Greg
second.
motion?
Yeah.
Greg and Don. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
That's Ryan.
Moving on, next item on the agenda, introduction of Oriole Estates PUD. Are you introducing the bill? Who is not in the room?
I'll do a quick introduction, but I think DR Horton's going to come up. So this is a proposed plan unit development. And so part of our rezoning process in our ordinance actually requires that they do an introduction to the town council prior to going to the plan commission. So this is that introduction. And so we're going to allow them to come forward and do a brief presentation and allow the council to give input.
Great, thank you.
Hey, John.
Thank you.
No, normally on these introductions, we don't.
I just introduced it and turned it over to him, but I don't want to say it.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is John Moore. My address is 50 South Meridian Street, Suite 700, Indianapolis, Indiana, 46204. I'm here tonight on behalf of your petitioner, DR Horton. With me tonight, I have Matt Dunn, Chris Dunn, Mark Bridwell, and Greg Kleiss from DR Horton. Also have Stephen Brehab here from Banning Engineering, our engineer on the project. As Ryan pointed out, we're here for our informational hearing. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the development, and then we'll be happy to take any feedback or questions that you have as we continue through this process. I will point out currently we're scheduled to be on the Plan Commission agenda April 25th, but I believe we're going to have that continued to May as we continue to work through this process. There we go. So the project site is approximately 78 acres. It's located directly west of Avon High School on the south side of Oriole Way. You'll see there we have Turner Trace to the north, Cedar Mill to the west, Village Oaks to the west, Avon High School there to the east, And then down to the southeast, we have Fairwood Section 4. That's a residential subdivision currently under development by D.R. Horton. And then I also note on the aerial there where the future Bradford Road extension is planned in the Avon thoroughfare plan. As we all know, right now at Dan Jones and Bradford Road, we have a three-legged roundabout. The Avon thoroughfare plan calls for the extension of Bradford Road to the west and then up to Oriole Way through this property. So I note that because it's part of this development. And what D.R. Horton is doing, this property is currently in the county. It's zoned ag in the county. D.R. Horton has filed a petition to annex the real estate into the town of Avon. And in conjunction with that annexation, to rezone the property to planned unit development. This is a unique development in that it accomplishes a few goals of the town of Avon. The first being the plan, the concept plan as proposed includes 25 acres that will be deeded to Avon High School, the Avon Community School Corporation, so that Avon High School can expand its athletic fields to the west. And I will note that Dr. Michael Sullivan is here tonight from the school corporation. Also, if you have any questions with respect to that. Secondly, it accomplishes what the thoroughfare plan calls for, the extension of Bradford Road. Bradford Road will extend through this development from Oriole Way south and then heading west to link up to Dan Jones Road. Concept plan calls for townhomes on 53 acres of the site. As I noted, the Avon High School athletic field expansion is approximately 25 acres. And then most of that wooded area down on the south will be preserved as part of the development. Currently, the Avon Community School Corporation owns approximately 38 acres of real estate that abuts the current Fairwood residential subdivision. D.R. Horton has worked with the school corporation to reach an agreement where the school corporation will exchange the property that's south of the Bradford Road extension. That'll be deeded to D.R. Horton, and then D.R. Horton would deed the approximate 25 acres to the school corporation to allow for that expansion of the athletic fields. And I don't want to speak for Dr. Sullivan, but I believe the reason for that is with that extension of Bradford Road that's in the thoroughfare plan, if the athletic fields were extended to the south, you'd have your high school students crossing a busy road there to get to those fields, whereas this allows the expansion of those athletic fields directly tied into the current campus, and your students won't be crossing any roads to reach those athletic fields. So what's it look like here on the concept plan? As I indicated, on approximately 53 acres of the site, we propose to build townhomes, currently 376 townhomes. Those townhomes are 2 and 3 bedrooms. They will be 3 stories each, range in size from 1,500 to just shy of 1,800 square feet. They will be rear-loaded garages so that the front of the townhomes face the roads. They'll have access drives in between the buildings to provide access to the rear-loaded garages. There'll be buildings of 3, 4, 5, and 6 units. They'll be priced from $300,000 to $400,000 each. There will be an amenity package of a pool, clubhouse, dog park, and bocce. Each townhome will be individually owned, be actually deeded to the owner of each townhome. There'll be low maintenance. The homeowners association will take care of the lawn, take care of the snow removal, maintenance of most of the exterior of the buildings. There will be a professionally managed homeowners association, and we have submitted several architectural commitments with the proposal. Then moving over to the Avon High School expansion, 25 acres approximately, leaves space for athletic fields, tennis courts, a locker room amenity, and parking. And that area will be delivered by D.R. Horton to the school corporation in pad-ready condition with utilities available to the site. And then the third piece is the Fairwood plat. Currently, the Fairwood subdivision abuts the property owned by the school corporation. That property would be deeded to D.R. Horton. So D.R. Horton has also filed applications to amend the existing plats of Fairwood to infill that real estate with additional residential lots, results in a net addition of 66 lots to Fairwood. Fairwood is zoned R1A, and those homes would continue to be developed per the existing R1A standards. So all of those items are tied together. We have an annexation, we have a rezoning, and we have plat amendment. And those are all tracking together as we move through the process here, and they're tied together for our request for approval. As I mentioned, this does accomplish one of the goals of the thoroughfare plan. Thoroughfare plan calls for the extension of Bradford Road from Oriole Way south, and then heading west to Dan Jones Road and the existing roundabout. D.R. Horton has agreed to pick up the cost of constructing that expansion on the property that D.R. Horton controls. So you can see there on the arrows, runs south from Oriole Way through the Oriole Estates PUD, then turns west to the terminus of the Fairwood subdivision. Cost of that's about $3 million that D.R. Horton's going to absorb as part of this. There is a small remaining section for the town. Reason for that is there's right-of-way needs to be acquired in that area. Does not exist currently. And so that small section there would be left for the town to complete. As I indicated, we have submitted several architectural commitments with this plan. I'm not going to read through all these here. You've got those there to read through if you have any questions or comments. But I do have several elevations here I'll show you, and the townhomes will be substantially similar to the renderings we're showing you here. Get to those. So here's a rendering of a 4-unit townhome building. One of the architectural commitments is that the facades of the buildings will incorporate various architectural features to provide a nice aesthetically pleasing view from the road there. That's a 4-unit townhome building. And then there on the right, you see the rear loaded garage, little balcony over the garage. 2-car garages with the driveways. 5-unit townhome building, very similar. And then there's a 6-unit townhome building. And so as indicated, there'll be 3, 4, 5, and 6-unit buildings interspersed throughout the development, all with the rear loaded garages. And then here's a view of the main entrance off of Oriole Way, heading into the development. There's the Collector Boulevard. That's the extension of Bradford Road. It'll be a boulevard type road running through the development. As indicated, there'll be an amenity package, clubhouse, pool, playground, bocce courts, and a dog park in the development. West side buffer, we will have a 50-foot wide buffer along the western property line of the development, and that'll be landscaped with trees and shrubs along the western property line of the community. And then, of course, as we've talked about, we do have the real estate set aside for the expansion of the high school athletic facilities, athletic fields, tennis courts, parking, and locker room type building. So with that, that's our proposal, and we're here for our informational hearing. We're happy to take any comments, feedback, or answer any questions that you might have.
Open it up to questions or comments for the petitioner.
Well, a couple of us attended the neighborhood meeting, and I know that there was a lot of negative feedback that took place there and concern by the surrounding residents and property owners and neighborhoods about the additional traffic that was going to take place there, and the fact that they are 3 stories, that they might be a more transient type, I guess, community, if you will. I think those were the major concerns that we heard. Am I correct? Robert, do you remember another one or two?
That's a highlight of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was what we heard more repeatedly during that meeting. So I hear them, and I can't say that I don't have the same concerns.
Okay.
As far as architectural, I don't know if you've been able to sit in on any of our other initial meetings when we meet with developers on neighborhoods, but even on our single-family residents, we've been able to, if we are going to a higher density type thing, we are looking for increased architectural standards, and that our new UDO shows that. That's our goal. And I can't help but look at the backs of these on the view 3 where you're showing the clubhouse. You do see backs from these common areas, and they're just flat backs. There's nothing exciting about the backs of those at all. And then I do have a question also on who will be responsible for the snow removal on the road that you're talking about, or the access that they have to get to their garage area. I mean, is that something that the town would have to provide snow removal for? It's not really a street. It's more of an alley type situation, if I understood you correctly.
That would be the HOA for the private alleys behind would be the responsibility of the homeowners association.
Okay. Just initially, those are my comments. I'll let others
Thank you.
speak.
I've got a number of questions. First question is, I've been receiving emails as well from people in the area that don't support it. And one of the questions is why not single-family homes? And that's because of the density that you have here, because of the height of the buildings you want to propose. And then another question I asked was, what was the target group that we were looking at? Is this seniors? Is this all across the board? Empty nesters? Is it just young professionals? Who are we trying to target here? But then as I go through this, and I think certainly one of my biggest concerns is traffic. And when you go to the extension of the Bradford Road, that road will now become, I think, a shortcut for a lot of people. And that shortcut is going to go through this housing development. So from a traffic calming standpoint, how do you propose to control that? I mean, I'm just throwing, you don't have to answer it now, but I mean, those are things we'll come back to, obviously. But then again, when initially you started, Mr. Moore, and you indicated you were deeding over the property to the high school, that 25 acres, and you did cover that technically you're swapping 25 acres for 38 acres. And you weren't speaking for the school, but that was easier because if Bradford Road comes through there, it would be easier to get to the 25 than the 38. So my quick comment was, what about a tunnel underneath the road? You know, so that was another question. And I believe D.R. Horton is a current developer of Fairwood. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So really, when you went through the 3 components in that Fairwood swap with the schools, that development has already been approved and pretty much addressed. So I'm okay with that. The other thing is I know the town was involved in early on conversations, but we haven't been involved in conversations probably once this project started moving forward. And some of those conversations, if you go to your high school, your three-prong, Jared, can you pull that up? It's probably about page 5 in the presentation. Yeah. That'll do that. Well, no, go to that. Go to another one. That one right there. Well, go back because it's probably better illustrated from what I'm going to say here. You've got your Bradford Road coming in off the roundabout. The town, you're looking to the town to make that improvement. You'll improve the rest of it. My concern is, in conversations we've been involved with, is the existing egress ingress from the school today onto Ronald Reagan will be closed. And the school will then build a new road. Now, if you go back to the other one, see the line up on the east side of your, right side of your project? That will become the new egress,
Right
ingress,
there.
correct, right there.
Yep.
From the school, so that road where it ties into will then go away. Then if you go to your, over to the left side of where your tennis courts are, there's supposed to be a road that comes through there as well into this development. So my sense is, I'm thinking, okay, these are high school kids. You have novice drivers. You've got people that are trying to get to school early. I know by experience, they don't go the speed limit. My daughter totaled her car in the high school parking lot. And I said, how'd you do that? You can only go 15 miles an hour. Well, so that's an issue that I have, or a concern. So, and then when you bring it in, all this traffic flow into this high density development and novice drivers and people trying to take the shortcut now that we've created, there's other issues there. I believe this has been presented before our UDO was approved, but I would certainly encourage you to look at what was approved in the UDO, because we have trying to enhance our standards of our developments. But I think so. Those are just quick comments as you provided us this handout.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got a couple. Mine are more looking at the concept, and I know concepts are just concepts. I do understand that. But the wooded area where showing the retention pond encroaching in that area, I mean, those are beautiful tree line right in there, and I hate to see some of that be taken out just to have drainage, holding of drainage there. So that's a concern there. I would like to see more integration of the pathway and connections with the school to make it more friendly on that. I share Greg's concern of maybe that being a thoroughfare there, but I do believe that can be traffic calming. I know there are some things that can be enhanced and worked on in that to take that out, but I'm more into the specifics here at this early stage, and I shouldn't be, but I tend to look at that. And then also I look down on the Fairwood section, I look across and at the concept there and like to see that a little more interest in that. And in other words, the box in the south, the 38-acre section down there is, like to see that, that part there taken care of a little more aesthetically, I guess is the word. Besides that, the school with, I guess I would like to hear from the school maybe what the thoughts were when having this land swap, the benefits, and if I could hear from them, that would be helpful for me, on that part.
Give us just one second, Dr. Sullivan.
Sorry.
If you're done, and let me.
Yeah, I
I'd like
am.
to grab
Go
some
ahead.
before we pull on. So correct me if I'm wrong, D.R. Horton won't be building any of the fields, parking lots, the tennis courts, any of that.
They'll be pad ready, but they will not be actually constructed, no.
So I feel that's more accurate to describe that as just 25 plus acres of open space. So then my question then becomes, how is this a PUD? How is this a unique land use? How is this, add that question, I feel like I know where that question goes. Add that question to 376 townhomes. That seems like this is coming to us as a PUD strictly to increase density. I believe the comp plan for this area is for, correct me if I'm wrong, it's innovation and wellness. Can you help me, help us understand where innovation and wellness comes to play in this? Last one, you got me my targeted demographics. That was one of my other questions. And then a bit follow-up is, it seems that there was, our town staff was not involved in the negotiation of this land swap. Is that correct? This land
I
swap
was not involved in
conversation.
the negotiations of the land swap, so I don't know how, Matt, if you want to speak to that.
Good evening. My name is Matt Dunn. I'm the division president for D.R. Horton here in Indianapolis. My address is 9210 North Meridian Street in Indianapolis. So the land swap at this point it's still an agreement in principle. There's so many details regarding this project and the overall development right now that we don't have a finalized agreement with the school at this point. So
You have a handshake right now.
it's a handshake agreement. We've had a half dozen meetings with various people, some consultants, architects, engineers for the school have been involved. We've obviously had our consultants and engineers involved as well. So we have the general handshake agreement in place, but there's a lot of details that we still need to work out based upon how this moves forward. So you mentioned some of the vertical infrastructure as part of this development. We don't know exactly what D.R. Horton will be responsible for and what the school will be responsible for at this point until we can formalize those negotiations. We've committed to the very least a pad-ready site with all the infrastructure in place for them to go vertical, but that very well could change as we work through this process and work more closely with them.
So this introduction is supposed to be for us to give feedback, like what makes this seem more realistic. You're presenting this as a PUD. I would say I would feel this would more qualify as a PUD if we had actual tennis courts up there, we had an actual parking lot, we had an actual athletic fields. But as it seems that it's presented, it will be an open space. While that's can be construed as an amenity, as an extra, it does not qualify as multi-use for a PUD, at least in my understanding. I believe you would need to include those as what D.R. Horton would be committing to build that for my view of what would qualify as a PUD.
Understood. Thank you.
Structures. Yep.
If council, if there's any more questions for the petitioner, I think if we can ask Dr. Sullivan from the schools. Not seeing any. All right, Dr. Sullivan, would you mind coming to the mic, please? Thank you.
Hi. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Michael Sullivan. I'm Assistant Superintendent of Avon Community Schools. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk to you about on our behalf for regarding Oreo States. As I just handed out to you, I'll start off by talking about our formal stance. Thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of Avon Schools regarding Oreo Estates, the proposed development west of Avon High School. We were made aware of this property being under contract with D.R. Horton, and then we reached out to begin conversations about the development and possibility of including some additional space to accommodate growth at Avon High School. As you likely know, Avon Schools has a demographic study that was completed in February 2021. This is the third update of that study by Dr. Susan Bredovic. The study identifies a base forecast that Avon School will surpass 4,000 students in 2028-29 school year. And we will continue to grow beyond that and reach 4,300 students in 2031-32 school year. Avon High School currently supports about 3,400 students and is approaching 25 years old. And our school board has been working with design build firms to design renovations and expansions of Avon High School so they can continue to serve Avon students for years to come. Once the land is developed to the west, you know that Avon High School will be landlocked. That is what led us to reach out to D.R. Horton, and we have appreciated the multiple ongoing conversations, which of course at this point they are conversations, regarding a possible land swap and would allow the school district to have the land closer to the main campus for athletic fields and tennis courts, which again is the reason why we don't go below Bradford instead of we're going to the west. The current tennis courts at AHS will need to be rebuilt. Whether or not this goes through, we'll still have to rebuild those tennis courts. However, we would not rebuild them in their current location next to the building. That area will be better served to expand parking. The land we would swap for in this development is land further south of Avon property that is used for cross-country courses, but it's not well suited for the growth of the school's parking lot, athletics fields, or tennis courts. Through these ongoing conversations with D.R. Horton, they have addressed most of our concerns. They have shared that the remaining concerns would not be able to be definitely answered without a fully engineered set of plans that is not typically completed without land use, zoning, or approval. And on the other side, you see some of the questions we still have that are outstanding. But again, this is a conversation that we're having. We're having other conversations about other parcels of land that we actually own as a school district. We're actually in talks about land that is across the street. We wanted to move west, but we found out that the land was under contract, and so we started to speak with D.R. Horton, and here we are.
Steve, you mentioned you had some questions for Dr. Sullivan, or did he answer those in this statement?
I see what, I think I see what's going on. This is for future use. And I can understand what you're saying here. I just, when we're trying to approve something like this, we like to see it all put together. And so, and have commitments on that area. So I would suppose my only things would be that I would like to see stronger commitments on these things. I see the need that you spelled out here, and so that's definitely there. And I see the reason for going to the west versus to the south. So.
And when you think of stronger commitments, you're thinking about commitments between us and D.R. Horton?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just like to see some written binding commitments that would help us to know what we're working with.
Dr. Sullivan, my question is then, down here in your handout, it did state that through your ongoing conversations with D.R. Horton, they have addressed most of your concerns. Can you share those concerns with us? What were they?
I think basically they're the ones that are stated that are here, there. I mean, some of them are like what you were talking about with traffic. Some of them are talking about that, of course, we're giving up 38 acres versus 25 acres. What would that look like as far as the swap? One parcel of land is valued at more than the other. So what will that look like? Then, of course, we don't know exactly what the housing development is going to look like. You guys are pushing back on whether it should be 3-story. And we know there's a difference between whether or not we have townhomes in there and we have single family homes. We know from our demographic studies that we get about a half a student from every single family home, depending on who the clientele will be for the townhomes. That'll make a big difference in who we'll have coming to our schools. Again, if it's retirement, then we probably will have less. If it is kind of, advertised to promote younger families, then we might have more. So those things are still, up in the air. And we have questions about whether or not we're going to have a certain number of students that are going to come to the school based on the demographics that's going to move into the housing.
The other bullet point you had, the last one, which regards the traffic is, I get the first part of the comment is that the town is going to be putting a roundabout in at the 150 South traffic light right now. But then it says if that were to occur, we would request that the traffic flow be rearranged west from Avon High School to allow traffic to flow through Oriole Estates and onto 150 South via that roundabout. Am I confused? Am I being confused with the future roundabout at 150 South and the roundabout at 200 South?
That's actually great. So I believe there is a misunderstanding here. So the way this document is stating is 150 South is at the entrance of the Oriole Estates development. I think the one you're referring to is our Dan Jones Phase 2 widening,
Right.
which is at Dan Jones and 150 South. I don't believe that is this. Do we have plans to put a roundabout at the entrance to this development on 150 South?
We don't currently have plans to put a roundabout at the entrance of 150 South, but I believe that's a discussion point that came up at TAC with staff as potential consideration of a roundabout being needed there based on the traffic study. And I think those discussions are pretty preliminary. I don't know if Steve stayed or not, but I think that's where that may have come from. And unless I'm wrong, Dr. Sullivan, but
You're right.
I think that's what they're referring to. And so, yeah, that probably hasn't been communicated to the council, but that's something that came up from staff based on the traffic study.
And as we do with other developments, if we're required to put in additional roadway because of a development's traffic that they're contributing to, then that cost would be also then offset by the developer.
Correct. Yeah, normally we would look for some kind of a financing commitment, or if again, normally we have a strategy where if there's a certain amount that they're contributing, we ask them to contribute whatever that percentage is based on the amount of traffic that's generated. And that normally comes from the traffic study. We wouldn't necessarily, there's background traffic or there's existing traffic, and we don't expect the developer to have to pay for that if that's necessary. So again, I think those are real preliminary staff discussions. I don't think we got to any final points, but Steve may be able to speak more to that.
That study hasn't been done yet. That traffic study has not yet been done.
I believe we have a traffic study. I don't know that it's been fully reviewed and vetted yet, and that we've actually provided comments. I think those comments from Steve were based on the layout of the neighborhood and how it was done. But again, I don't want to speak for Steve. You may ask him specifically.
Input on the needs for traffic. So from Dr. Sullivan's input here, the last bullet point says that the town would need to put in or potentially need to put in a roundabout at the entrance to this development at 150 South. We're concerned about who's going to pay for that.
Yeah, so again, preliminary discussion.
Can you, yeah, sorry.
All right. Steve Moore, Public Works Director. Yeah, we had some preliminary discussions with the developer and their engineer, and we discussed how we would fund a roundabout at that location. And typically what we do is we get some type of a fee per unit, and we came up with an approximate number, just conceptually pie in the sky. We're not talking numbers today, but we came up with some numbers that we felt that would probably be appropriate based on the number of units, based on the cost of a roundabout, and then how we would construct it over time. So again, very preliminarily, yeah, we're talking a roundabout there. We are also talking about possible partnership in building out toward Dan Jones as well, with us getting the right of way and working together on that, joining in there. So not that it would be all us, not that it'd be all them. So yeah, it's all very preliminary, but yes, we have those discussions.
I feel like I can speak for it. Make sure that that's a massive part. If this is going to go through, that it's very clear this is going to cause a traffic problem, that we get an appropriate commitment from the developer to alleviate that traffic.
Yeah, and Ryan and I, we were talking numbers. We have our ideas, And there's more things to it. You know, you talked about it being a major connector, and you talked about, I think Steve or even Greg, maybe both of you talked about traffic calming or concern about speed, volumes. We've discussed that to some degree, but again, this is still preliminary stuff. As it comes through, we'll look at it. We'll have conversations. You know, we know the engineer very well. We know the developer very well as far as, you know, what they've done in the past. You know, if we have some druthers, there could be ways to insert those druthers in order to either, again, calm traffic, facilitate the free flow. The intersection with the school would be one of my concerns right now. You know, that Stubb Street where you have a lot of kids and staff trying to leave and get on to Dan Jones through that back way. Yeah, me personally, I think there's some more things we can consider there as well. So I mean, there's this again is very preliminary, but as we move forward, we do have it on our radar for those things.
Thanks, Steve. That's exactly what I want to make sure it's on your radar.
One of you guys were asking about, I think Greg, about demographics, and at that initial neighborhood meeting, when they were talking, they talked about it being for young professionals. They also talked about it being for
Empty nesters.
empty nesters. And the questions that came up was 3 stories, empty nesters, that's a lot of steps. So, you know, how realistic is that? But, and then with the 3 bedrooms, typically it's going to be probably a younger adult or family.
Yeah, the demographics are going to be very interesting, and I appreciate staff going through and thinking through the assignment of per unit on potential paying for the roundabout.
A couple more questions I have then for Dr. Sullivan. Let's just speculate that this goes through. The existing road that ties into Dan Jones now that has been talked about, is it an accurate statement that the school is going to close that entrance and then the road from that road down to Bradford Road will be constructed for that traffic flow then to come back out to Bradford Road to go to the roundabout at 200 South?
I think, again, all these things are still in preliminary stages, but that's one thing that's been spoken about. So what you're thinking about has been one of the options we've been thinking about.
The other side of that is I'm going to assume that that road, that if it gets built, is a private road that the school will maintain. Is that correct?
It would be.
Are students going to come down that little road and make a left across the busy thoroughfare that's really, I mean,
Well, I just want to make certain
out to the
that
roundabout?
if this was to happen, that road needs to be done at the same time. Because I'm not interested in approving anything with deferred plans or projects down the road. I mean, it's because of the flow of the traffic and the increased traffic. And then you go into the parking lot from the existing high school into the court, the parking lot where the future ball fields are going to be and tennis courts. I believe you can cut through that parking lot to get back onto that main arterial road. I don't know. Somebody needs to help me here because to me, it doesn't look good. But that's my opinion.
Well, Greg, I hear what you're saying too. The road, this concept that's up right now, to the far right of it, where it's starting to connect to the east, it's showing the existing road or a road there connecting, coming down, meaning you're going to get significant amount of school traffic coming through there. As we know, that's what
Well, that's the only way they're going to be able to go because they're going to close off the other one onto Dan Jones.
Correct. And they need to have a second. And we see the dependence on that road now, where originally that road was only to be used for deliveries. And now we see what's happened over 20 years, naturally. But so now we have to be realistic about that will be a heavy, in the traffic study, we got to make sure that's factored in there.
Yeah, so one of the concerns that I had was proximity to Dan Jones with that intersection. And so I mean, one of the ideas that I tossed out was not a roundabout, but a traffic circle in order to facilitate the traffic going through there so that you wouldn't have the right angle collision possibilities. You reduce the accident severity if there is one, but also give better opportunity for people to get in there and go through and exit. So again, a traffic circle is kind of like a mini roundabout. But yeah, that's one of my concerns. It's awfully close. And I don't like the right angle at that location. And I don't like the, depending on which way you're going, the acceleration that people would have coming off of the other roundabout or the speed that they have attained as on that straightaway. So, I don't want the young drivers to have to deal with that either.
And Steve, I remember the early Fairwood concept did have another leg coming in from the school going into the roundabout, the existing one that's out there now.
See, that was BS before Steve. Yeah, I wasn't here for that.
Well, it got voted down too, so it had the dual meaning of that. So,
yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Any further questions or comments for Dr. Sullivan or the petitioner?
I don't think so, but I kind of do want to reiterate, we spent a lot of time defining what PUD was and determining things. And again, this isn't a PUD. It's just higher density.
I'll leave my last comments is density is a bad word in this community, but under the right circumstances, density is ideal and it's a key factor. I do not believe density in this area is a good use, high density in this area, and further, high density on top of a world-renowned marching band and arts program just doesn't seem to be a great fit for the locale. Any further comments? Nothing? All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Note the introduction of Port Oriole Estates PUD is introduced. Moving on, ordinance 2022-11 Wesleyan Investment Foundation zoning amendment 22-03. The shoe bill.
More zoning stuff. So yeah, this is a rezoning request, and it's a rezoning request of 20 acres from the R1 zoning district, the single-family residential district, to the multiple family residential district, the R5 zoning district, to provide for, I believe, a double community, two-family residential subdivision. A conceptual plan that was submitted with the petition shows that it was about 31 two-family residential lots, which would allow for the construction of about 62 total units. Also shown on the conceptual plan is the retention plan, or is the retention of the existing religious use. In other words, the existing church on the property on about 3.5 to 4 acres. Excluding that church acreage from the computation, the proposed gross density of this development, which would be about 3.8 units an acre. Properties adjacent to single-family residential development to the northeast and south. Single-family residential development is Austin Lakes. That's density is roughly at 2.5 units an acre. To the south is Waterford Lakes, and that's a two-family residential zoning classification or community, which is developed roughly about 3.7 units an acre. So even though the petitioner is requesting the R5 zoning district, the density is in line with a two-family residential zoning classification. The existing one to the south, it's not that far off. The Advisory Plan Commission did meet on this petition on February 28th, and they did forward this. They forwarded it with a favorable recommendation, and that was by a vote of 6-0. They did subject to that to 4 commitments. That a 60-foot half right-of-way be dedicated along Dan Jones Road, that a restrictive donation for the construction of a multi-use trail shall be done to the town of Avon for the cost of construction, that the permitted uses shall exclude townhomes, 4-unit structures or less, multifamily dwellings, 6-unit structures or less, multifamily dwellings more than 6-unit structures, manufactured home dwellings and funeral homes and mortuaries. And of the fourth one is that the use of vinyl siding shall be prohibited. As far as vinyl siding and the prohibition, the petitioner proposes to substitute fiber cement siding, hardy plank on that as a masonry requirement. And they've asked that that be counted towards a masonry requirement. And that's actually permitted under the zoning ordinance. This came in under the previous zoning ordinance, so we reviewed it under the previous zoning ordinance. And the subdivision control ordinance does allow for the substitution of hardy plank or fiber cement siding and to be counted as a masonry requirement under the old ordinance. That's the staff's presentation. The petitioner is here, and we've had some discussions with the petitioner about certain aspects of this development. Mainly, and it really is plating requirements and the retention of full access for both the church property and the single-family residential property. And those are still sort of ongoing, although the petitioner has, I believe, submitted a 5th commitment for possible review. So I just bring that up to you just in case you want to let the petitioner get up, give it a chance to speak with you on this petition.
What you just said, Bill, make so I'm clear, is they still haven't come to an agreement of using the existing entry into this property with a secondary entrance into this that ties into Beechwood Farms? Because we don't want 2 entrances on that stretch there.
Well, they would propose 1 entrance for this development off of Dan Jones Road, and then, of course, they'll connect it to the development to the south, the existing Stubbs Street. But the church maintains a full access on Dan Jones Road, and they don't propose to remove that act. Well, they did not. I mean, we've had a meeting with them. I don't know what the status of that. We had a meeting with them this afternoon, and I don't know the status of any discussions subsequent to that meeting. It was the church itself. So the development's in 2 different entities, Wesleyan Foundation, and then of course there's a Wesleyan Church on the property currently right now, and they're 2 sort of separate entities. And the church entity does not want to lose their access, at least they didn't want to lose their access point to direct access to Dan Jones Road.
Let me pause and back up, kind of a point of order question. This is a final reading, correct? We have the petitioner here. You've only got 4 council members here this evening. I've asked this before. Because you don't have a full slate on the council, would you like to continue this agenda item until the next meeting or until a future meeting?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Apologies, Bill.
No problem. No.
Any further questions for staff or petitioner?
Bill, I'm trying to remember the church. I'm trying to remember the church. I know they had plans for the property that made it why they wanted to keep that. Can you remember what it was that?
My understanding is that they want to increase the capacity of the church itself.
Schematic up there.
But they don't have definitive plans for that church right now.
Okay.
Or that expansion. So they don't know how, they don't want to create, say, a drive off of the proposed street that's going to interfere with their possibility of expanding their structure.
Okay.
And so they're just concerned that they want to keep their options open.
Okay. That's how I remember it too. I was just trying to think through why they couldn't just connect to the south.
No street.
I have some questions. Is this density that we're talking about, is that a gross density or net density?
It's a gross density. The 3.8 does exclude the 3.5, 4 acres for the church, the proposed church building.
Is that the existing church, or is that the existing church and then the land that they're going to have for a future expansion of the facility?
My understanding on this is that the amount of acreage for the church is going to remain the same, but the layout of that, so you'll see it up there. The little red line up on that particular exhibit shows the existing boundaries of the church property. And they've proposed that sort of different layout, but the acreage remains roughly the same. So the acreage that the church will occupy on this 20-acre site will remain about the same. But the orientation or the way that is laid out will be slightly different.
So then, okay, so you got 20 acres, you back out to 4 acres of the church, right?
Right, yeah.
What is, then you've got here, you've got the existing pond, and then within the existing pond, we're going to expand that. So what's the acreage of that item?
That I don't have a good measurement on that one.
Okay, so that's all right. So then what about, we've got 5.43 acres of common area, right? Common area we're not going to build on, is that correct?
That's right, yeah.
So I guess what I'm trying to get to here is the density is really more than 3.91 units an acre, because once you back out the church, once you back out the pond, once you back out the common area, once you back out your roads, to me, your density could be anywhere to 10.5 units an acre or even more. You got your right of way.
Yeah, that the 3.88 units per acre calculation that we did exclude the church acreage, the acreage that is proposed in the plan for the church. And yeah, that is correct, that if you start excluding some of the stuff in the subdivision, that your calculation of the density goes up. But from a planning side of it, we typically don't exclude things like the ponds and the rights of way, because all those are things that have to be constructed to support the development. So that's why we always bring up a gross density, and we tend to use the site, because a lot of the things like open space and ponds and streets are all things that have to be constructed with us by the subdivision control ordinance to support the development. So that's the reason we do it that way.
And that's fine. And I understand that, but I'm trying to drill down to really what we can build on. And so what you said, you're right. You can't build on a pond. You can't build on a common area. So then what I did was I went over to the Fairwood Farms subdivision, and I sat in their road cut, and I took a picture of it.
Beechwood Farms.
Or Beechwood Farms. And it appears as if this road that they want to tie into there, I'm not an engineer, but is not from what I saw in the picture that I took, because the picture looked like it went right through the middle of the building where the road cut would go. See, here's your this, and then there's your building. So I'm not sure that's correct too, but.
They're doing a deep bend there to make that.
So I've just, I don't know. I get it. It's an infill. I understand that, but I still have a number of concerns.
We also, I have concerns, and I know I've spoken with some other people that have concerns about the squared off corners up there and the maneuverability of our fire trucks, our school buses, things like that, making those turns. If there's any vehicle parked in the street, they won't make that turn.
Yeah, those are not atypical. We do have those. I want to say we have them in Turner Trace or a couple of other locations in the town. So that's not necessarily an atypical layout there. But you're right. It is a street layout that is going to require some waivers during the plating process to construct that street.
That road on the bottom right corner, I've driven over there and I can't find that road.
It exists. So that what we believe happened is that road was constructed and right away was never granted for it. We can't find it anywhere. So it was part of that. So the subdivision was built in the county. And then they built that road, and we simply can't find any proof that there's ever been right of way granted for that road.
So what do you do?
We don't, we have right of way dedicated. No. We would usually require right of way dedication with the plat.
And I can vouch, it exists. That's where Park didn't put the drone up from.
Well, I know I can get from there to there, but according to that picture, that's not how it's laid out.
Right.
Jonathan Isaacs, My Homes, Director of Land Acquisition here in Indianapolis. That road was built with the neighborhood. There is a easement, public easement dedication that we found in the chain of title. So the county did accept public right-of-way as an easement, so it's not what you would typically do as a formal dedication. We would fix that as part of any platting. And as we go forward. So obviously that street was there. It's built legally, and it is formally dedicated as a street, just not in the conventional way that you typically see it. And if I can just add some clarity, in our meeting that we had yesterday with Steve and Ryan, we talked a lot about different options with the church, and the pastor from the church was there at the meeting as well. And we came to the conclusion, and we agreed, and we'll put this in writing as a formal commitment, that the new roadway will line up to Beechwood Farms, and the existing driveway that the church has will become a right-in, right-out only. What we will do is we will work with the church at providing the church a driveway that goes from this new roadway over to their existing parking lot. So they'll be able to utilize the entire, a potential full access from this roadway, which really makes sense because that's really the only guarantee that we can have to have a full access is to have something that's lined up to another street. Otherwise, the church parking lot or the church driveway today, it was very blunt when we had our meeting to us, is that will be a right in, right out, no matter what, as part of your Dan Jones Road improvement. So we're in agreement to make that a right in, right out from day one.
And
As
where
soon
are
as
you
the
going to construct that road where you're talking about access to the parking lot? Are you going to come up on that north end of that corner?
If you can go screen ahead. Right there. Now, this is not the exact location, but this is kind of the concept, would be to create a driveway that connects the two existing driveways. What that does is, trying to keep it in a way that's not going to be totally impactful to the ability for the church to do their expansion in the future. In all likelihood, that becomes a parking lot, and that gets expanded. Maybe it gets torn out and redone. Grading has to be, modified or whatever. But that's something that we are willing to, work with the church, and the church has accepted that as an alternative. And we came to that agreement yesterday.
How are you going to make that a right in, right out today? How are you going to enforce that until we've widened Dan Jones and put a median?
When we go through the construction plan process, Steve will have us provide something that will be on that roadway that will prevent someone from being able to make that left turn movement. That we don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet.
Center median.
What did the neighbors in Austin Lakeside abut the northern part of the property and the neighbors of Waterford Lakes on the southern side. What were their comments in your neighborhood meetings?
So we did have one neighborhood meeting. We had 6 or 7 people that came. 3 of them were from the project directly to the south, the paired homes to the south. The other one that came is on the other side of that road that was platted, not platted, but is on the property that right across the street from there. And really, there was really no major concerns that came out of that meeting. There were no changes that were required. No one came to remonstrate at the public hearing.
So as I look at that, the northern side is, you said you wouldn't do vinyl, which you'll do hardy board. To me, that's where your hardy board would go, those 4 houses on the north, around the lake to the road. And then the other ones would be brick, because the brick then backs up to Waterford Lakes, and that's what that development is. And then the infield and the other homes. Have you made that considerations, or has anybody said anything like that to you?
No.
Because then I went through, like I said, through the subdivisions, and I parked in front of the homes in Waterford Lakes. And they've all got big 2-car garage, all brick. So I'm just trying to determine if we're going to do this to make it compatible to what is already there.
I believe these homes will have more square footage than those existing paired patio homes. And the value that we're going to have here, close to $300,000 sales price. That puts, with 62 units here, that's almost $18 million worth of assessed value on this property that doesn't exist today. And the hardy board, adding brick at that point, between that and hardy board, it's the cost that you're adding to that home is not adding value to the home, because that customer is going to end up having to take something away, because the value of that home now, the cost of that home became higher. So something that the customer might really want to have, granite countertops upgraded for, or something like that, you take $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 away from them because you got to put brick on the rear of a home. That's in our market. That's not really where the customer's choices have been, and that's all the way up through, the custom home market that we see everywhere.
What is the average square footage of these homes that you're proposing?
They are, I believe they are 1,900 square feet.
All of them?
Yeah, there's like 3 different sizes of units. But yeah, they're in that 1,900 square foot range.
And are they 1 level, 2, or 3?
They're 2.
All of them?
All of them.
What was the question, Dawn?
I said, are they all 1 level or 2? They're all 2 level. Which is another thing we've heard in the past with developments is just to the north of you, on the other side of, in Austin Lakes, on the north side where we just put in Countryside, the people that we heard from in Austin Lakes when that was being developed was they didn't want the taller structures, because then they're looking down into their backyards, they lose some privacy, things like that. So you've got a lot of 1-story homes in Austin Lakes, and you definitely have all 1-story homes in Waterford Lakes.
Yeah, so there is common area adjacent to all the perimeter. So all the tree lines and everything that are out there will remain.
There are no tree lines along
Well,
Waterford
whatever's
Lakes.
out there, it would remain,
There
but,
is nothing there. It was a soccer field.
okay.
Yeah. So I'm saying, I'm addressing it because we've heard that in meetings before. You're putting 2 stories, and these are all 1 level, and there is no buffer, period. No buffer. It's flat land, grass.
I mean, there is, the homes to the north are not exclusive single-story homes.
Not all of them. But they are exclusively to the south. They're all one story.
The duplexes to the south,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
And there were trees along the duplex property line to the south.
Not much. Mm-mm. One or two.
Well,
They're grass. It's grass. It was a soccer field.
I'm talking about right on the property line.
We'll agree to disagree.
Can I ask why you didn't include any elevations of your product? Elevation imagery.
I thought I did.
No.
I didn't even see this handout.
They're there.
The question, was this presented before today? I would request that we have had this in our packet. Was this just turned over today?
No, this was in the Plan Commission packet that I provided.
Do you have a side view of these and rear view?
I can provide you those. I don't think I have those with me today.
Everybody seems to pretty up and elevate the front, and then the sides and the backs are squares and plain. And we asked the developer prior to you what the demographic is. What do you see as your demographic, family-wise?
So we see this as young professionals, young marrieds, possibly with young children, not necessarily something that is going to generate a lot of school-age kids, and probably in the middle-aged area too, like divorcees, single-parent households, things like that. I don't know if I would say empty nester, but young, active, an active adult that can still do stairs. But yeah, in our other townhome communities, like in downtown, we have a 3-story townhome community, and that demographic is 23 to 75. Mostly 40s and 50s in that group, but.
I almost cover the whole range, so it doesn't matter.
Any further questions for the petitioner or staff? If not, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion. I mean, I'm fine with it, so I'll make a motion. I think we call it ZA 2203. Is that what we're calling this? Okay. Westland Investment Foundation Properties receive a favorable recommendation as proposed. I don't have any commitments that I would just say the commitments that have been presented.
We have a first. I'm not hearing a second. Motion fails.
All right.
I make a motion to decline Westland Investment Foundation ZA 22-03 as presented.
We have a motion to decline. Do we have a second?
I'm going to have to second that.
We have a first and a second. Julie, any further discussion first?
I thought that the Plan Commission did a good job with it, so that's the reason why I was making a favorable recommendation for it, so, yeah.
If I may, before you take a final action, is there something here that we can do that are we way off here? Because the Plan Commission on a 6-0 vote with quite a bit of discussion, to come here and have a complete opposite with not, kind of just disallowing what the Plan Commission's recommendation was. It's not like it was like a split vote, unanimous recommendation. So if there's something here that we can do to make the changes that turn a no vote into a yes vote, I'm willing to do that.
Mitchell, forgive me. It's a point of order question. We have a motion and a second on the table. Are we past the point of changing this? Or are we past the point of offering changes, commitments that might change this?
No, if the two people that made the motion are fine with suspending it for the moment to entertain more dialogue, that's fine. If it's the will of the council to take a vote on it right now, that is within your authority as well.
Thank you. Would either of you like to provide feedback or change your motion?
The only thing that I can see that I haven't gotten was the packet that is up there right now. But I still don't have enough information to change my motion.
And I feel like we're a long way from where I could say yes.
I'm going to tell you my biggest concern is that road. Having two entrances onto that road, a lack of commitment to an enforcement prior to this is a bit alarming to me. Traffic is a major concern in the community, and to have one of our major arteries have two entrances that close to each other is it's not conducive with good traffic flow. I would suggest if this were to be presented in the future or presented again, that those commitments be made before they make it here. That being said, Julie, would you mind taking roll call, please? This is, again, motion to deny the petition.
Robert Pope,
4.
Greg Zuzen,
4.
Don Loudon,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth.
Against.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda, introduction of ordinance 2022-12, amending the right-of-way permit fees and annual bond. Is this you, Ryan?
This is me. Anytime a contractor or developer wants to do any excavating or construction work in our right-of-ways, they are required to get a permit and post a bond through the town. What this ordinance does is going to make two amendments to those policies. The first is going to increase the permit fee. This fee has not been updated, I think, in about a decade. So what this will do is raise it $100, and that's just to better align that fee with the town's cost to process the permit and inspect the project. The second change it will make is to allow for certain developers or contractors to apply for annual bonds. The current town code states that every time you pull a permit, you have to have a bond with it. And the town also recognizes that we have certain contractors that are pulling multiple permits throughout the entire year. So what this process will do will allow them to post a higher bond that will serve as kind of an umbrella policy for all the permits that they have going in and out each year. This
Like
for
a
introduction
retainer
tonight.
fee.
What's that?
Like a retainer fee.
Almost like a retainer fee, yes. It's for introduction tonight, and I'll be happy to field any other questions.
Any questions for Mitchell?
It's redlined. It looks clear. Yeah.
I've got one, just the wording, permit fees may be adjusted or waived at the discretion of the Public Works Director. What's the scope of those adjustments or waivers?
Yeah, it's normally based off of project size. Steve,
Put you
and
on the
then
spot
also
again,
if it's depending on who's doing the work, if it's a not-for-profit. But Steve can probably give you more specifics as what he's seen as waivable fees.
Yeah, again, Steve Moore, Public Works Director. We might waive something that it maybe work for us, work for the township on a joint project, work for, it's not something that would be just because I like the guy or double because I don't like the guy.
Or they like you?
Yeah, I haven't found one of those yet. But anyway, no, so it's basically, sometimes we'll waive it, like if we want like AT&T to move a vault for us to construct a path, so it's not, so our path doesn't have to go around it. You know, we'll waive the fee just so they can move that for our benefit. So very, very Very rare, but we do it.
Understood. Thank you. Any further questions, staff or
Nope.
or Mitchell? Then please note ordinance 2022-12 as introduced. Next item, legal counsel report.
I have nothing else for you tonight. Thanks.
Excellent. Moving on, the second opportunity for council comment. Second of two public comment opportunities. You may comment on items on the agenda that are not a public hearing or on a specific matter within the council's jurisdiction. Please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and limit your time to 3 minutes.
Good evening, council. Ryan Wathen, 1480 Laurel Oak Drive, Avon, with the Coalition for Responsible Growth. I just wanted to commend the council tonight because honestly, we had two folks show up here with not ready for prime time developments with a lot of unanswered questions. And I appreciate the fact that you explored those questions, you looked into them. And I will say on this second development, for them to even, I don't understand how it passed the Planning Commission because it is a violation of the Signature Streets Ordinance. And the Signature Streets Ordinance also has architectural standards in it. So apparently the Planning Commission failed on both of those, unfortunately. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing that. Closing this section of public comment. Second opportunity for council comment. Open it up.
Nope. Just have a good Easter.
Thanks, Steve. You too. Next council calendar. Ryan.
Just a reminder, next meeting is April 28th. See you guys then.
Meeting adjourned.